Welcome back. You're listening to the panel discussion, Maximizing Efficiencies, Readiness, and Asset Management in DoD, sponsored by Infor on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network. I'm your host, Jason Miller. My guest today, Colonel Kerry George, the Deputy Director of Maintenance Policy and Programs at the Army, Colonel Marlon Crook, the Deputy Director for the National Guard Bureau for CIO J6 Directorate, Mark Fox, the Senior Manager for Global Defense Programs at Amazon Web Services, and Risa Savold, the Technical Director at Infor for Federal and DoD Solutions. During the last segment, we were talking a lot about the cloud and AI and all the tools that come with it and the excitement and really the expectations around it. Obviously, it's not just a light switch. We've heard that before. No technology, you just turn on and go. So there's a preparation. We've talked a lot about data, but there's other pieces and parts. Maybe Mark, jump in here and lead us off with how can agencies, how can the DoD kind of prepare for those tools? Because if they start using tools they're not prepared for, people get frustrated and stop using them.
Right, yeah, I think the acknowledgement that it isn't just a silver bullet, push the button, we're going to do it. There is a significant amount of upfront preparation, even down to the point of what the data scientists are doing with the information. But it will typically start, Jason, with that old, let's start from the customer and let's work backwards from there. What is the problem that we're trying to solve first? What are the big rocks that need to be addressed? And then what data do we have today? So if the problem is around, let's say, an Army vehicle, is that vehicle outfitted with telematics? Does it have sensors today? Is it capturing data in a manual way? What's there? That data needs to be brought in. And then that really allows you to kickstart that machine learning AI process. Again, back to the same consistent theme here, that without that data, the panacea of what ML and AI could deliver is not going to happen. So I think it's that start with the problem, the customer, work backwards from there, and then start the process and pick the tools that are necessary. And the other part that I think we're going to talk about here is the people challenge around this as well.
Right. And Colonel George, let me bring you into that, because I think starting with the problem, how often when you talk with logistics officers and logistics people and even brigade combat teams, they understand what the problem is. No, we just need the uniforms here more quickly. Well, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Are you having that conversation?
We do, and we actually starting about the time where, talent management-wise, about the time we're majors, so we go to the intermediate level education, they kind of shift our mind to, instead of fixing the problem, identifying the problem. Yeah. And that's sometimes a significant time investment. I mentioned the pilot that I'm working on for this clothing bag. And this is a problem they've been working on to identify and shape and frame the problem for going on 2 years now.
And it seems so simple too, doesn't it?
It does.
What clothes do you need on the first day?
What clothes do you need? When do you need them? But what is the real problem that we're trying to solve? Is it that we're trying to save money? Is it that we're trying to save time? If we save time, what are you going to do with the time? So framing that problem took a significant amount of time. We knew there was a better way to do it, but what is the problem that we're really trying to solve out of this?
Colonel Crook, do you have this similar conversations with, if you will, your customers when you talk to other people in the National Guard Bureau? What do you start with that question? What are we trying to do here? Or versus, hey, if we have this AI, I'll just throw the AI into it. It'll work, right? You can't obviously do that.
So the requirement drives the solution. So usually,
hopefully,
in the J3 in the operations world, they'll come to us with a requirement and not a solution. Most times they've seen a thing and say, we want that. And we always push them to the requirement. And the requirement will drive what solution we provide to them. And again, that brings us back to those pilots. That's the efficiencies, the economy of scale the Guard gives us, that we can do pilots. So we can leverage our partnerships with industry, and we can do small pilots to see what's best. We're always working to shortcut the bureaucracy, do rapid acquisition, but we have to stay ahead, so we can stay ahead with industry to meet the needs, so we can get the best of breed, so we can meet that requirement.
Colonel George.
I think companies like Amazon are some of our biggest inspiration, but at the same time, they are also they cause us a lot of problems because they make things look so easy. It's really difficult to explain. Okay, you got to go back and look where Amazon started, and they didn't get to where they are today by starting this 6 months ago. They started,
They also started with a cleaner sheet of paper than the U.S. Army has, right? Yeah. You don't have 270 odd years of baggage over at Amazon. At least we hope not, right?
Not that long.
Risa, jump in a little bit, because I think part of this discussion of getting prepared to use AI, ML, there's also, we talked a lot about the data, but there's other pieces to it as well. I mean, what do you, when you talk to your government customers, do they come in with the solution or they come in with the problem? What's the conversation like?
We definitely have customers come to us with problems, but usually the problem is very, very big. So for example, they may say, we need you to come help us optimize our inventory. And we'll have to break that down into much smaller pieces. Maybe we'll look at just predicting demand for a particular class of supply in a particular location, or maybe predicting items that will be back ordered, but again, looking at just very specific items that are maybe in high demand. And we definitely see a lot of requests for building algorithms directly into our software. And so we choose those problems very carefully, definitely discuss those requirements in great detail with the customers, make sure we understand their data. And in some cases, we have been successful doing a pilot with the customer and then pushing that algorithm into our commercial software. But it's important to know that even when an algorithm is coming out of the box like that, it should still be based on your historical data and trained on your data.
We spent a lot of time on that data piece, and so let me take the opposite side of it is, okay, even if you have great data and you have this great technology and you're riding the Amazon cloud or whomever, you still have to have people who know how to use it. And maybe Colonel George, start there. Is that the next biggest challenge for you, to get people to understand the technology, the power of the data, the power of the tools?
It's got to be easy. If it's not easy out of the box, it's going to get set aside very quickly. We've had a lot of technical solutions offered to us for various things. And you mentioned the 3 clicks earlier. We all have smartphones in our pockets, and we expected to be able to pick it up without any instructions, open an app, and use it. But yet we still tend to develop our systems for the military that are difficult. So it's got to be easy. Another challenge is from the people side is our growing that force within the military. Not just the users, but then the people who are really smart that can help us shape those requirements. Because we kind of see something that looks good and then see, oh, I want that. But actually having people that speak the language in the military and can help translate the infantrymen on the ground saying, I want to do this, to translating that into a true requirement that can turn that data into what we need.
I think the easy piece is so important. I think people forget that, when we're so used to our personal lives. Oh, I want to watch TV, I'll just put on Netflix and there's 1,000 things I can watch. Or the iPhone example is a great one. Right? I can just bring up an app and do it. Do you see that because as you have younger recruits and the millennials and are starting to kind of move into that middle tier of the Army, that they're pushing those changes? Or are older people like us still stomping our foot, and even though we're basically, I would call us digital natives from Generation Xers?
Yes, I am starting to see a cultural shift. I was probably part of the first generation where we had computers in every orderly room, but it was 2 or 3. And, it was the commander, the first sergeant, maybe the training clerk that had a computer. Now we've moved a lot of our training to digital and online enabled. We haven't necessarily always caught up with having the hardware necessary or the devices necessary to enable that. But we're seeing that, though. Our recruits are smarter there when it comes to using that technology. They want it. I mean, when we see these recruits come in, that first experience when they're able to order something off of any of our online retailers and have it show up within 24, 48 hours, and they show up to basic training, and it takes them a series of weeks to actually get all the uniforms they need, going in and physically getting size, even though they've gone online, there are programs online they can use to order all their clothes. It's got to be a disappointment. We're supposed to be the premier fighting force in the world, and we just took you back a generation when you showed up the first day of basic training. So.
And Colonel Kirk, also jump into that discussion, because the workforce side, you deal with it from both angles, right? You have the reservists who bring all this great understanding and technology and expectations from their private sector world, but then you also have the career National Guard, who, like yourself, who, you have expectations and you have things that you want to get done as well, from a technology perspective.
Yeah, I was listening to my counterpart and saying we have those same concerns as our active counterparts, compounded a bit because we do have folks in an industry that make a heck of a lot of money, and when we put them on long deployments, most times they do it for a love of God and country, because they lose a substantial amount when they come to the Guard. So we're rethinking from the beginning how we recruit talent, even to how we test them and train them. Our peers, our competitors, don't have the same stance when it comes to recruiting into the technological fields. You have to be 17 and a half with your parent's signature. You go through basic training, some follow-on training, then maybe some advanced schools. So that's a long tail when you think about getting somebody in from 17 until fully trained, where other folks may come in different countries and have a cyber rodeo, a capture the flag deal. And next thing you know, you're on the team, right? We have to rethink how we train. How do we assess physical fitness for a cyber professional that can deliver kinetic effects from a chair? Do they need to be strong enough to drag a person off the battlefield? What are we really testing here? So these are things that we're considering, as well as recruiting and retention. How do we keep that traditional guardsman and that traditional role when they can go to industry and make a lot more? So these are things we're currently working on right now to tackle, to shape our future force.
Let me bring in Mark and Risa, because what they're saying is we need different things from industry. We need that make it easy. So how do you all take what they're saying and say, okay, how do you bring that back to your developers and people to say, okay, if this is too complicated, no one's going to buy it, no one's going to use it. Maybe Mark, start off.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, we go back to that piece, which is that's the way that it works, which is, we want to hear from the customers in this case, and that is what typically is going to drive both of what we build and develop. The interesting part is there is an inverse relationship between ease, simplicity that Gen Y, Gen Z has, which is at expectations, it's 1 or 2 clicks away. The more easy it is on the front end, typically the more complex it is on the back end on the development side. So there needs to be an acknowledgement of that piece. Again, the capabilities, that's the challenging part to your folks that go off in a suit and tie on some days of the week and come back in uniform on the others, is that there's probably a level of frustration that they have. But hopefully that frustration can be turned into and drive some of the requirements and move the guard further. And again, on the active duty side of the house, it has an impact on recruitment and retention. If these folks come in and have that frustration, and it takes them 2 days to get a uniform and it's the wrong size and they send it back, it takes a week to get it back. That's a challenge. And to your point, sir, it isn't all just about money, but if the experience is frustrating there and getting their hands on the technology they're used to, then the only thing left is money, and obviously industry is going to be at an advantage there.
And Risa, jump in on the same question around how do you take back what they're saying to ensure that Infor and your other partners are kind of understanding that if it's not easy, it's not going to get used?
Yeah, so we address that in a couple ways. We actually have an internal design agency that focuses on user experience, and we send them out to customers, actually talk with end users about what works and what doesn't. And it's not just making the software look pretty, it's about making it more intuitive. So they need less training, or as they're using it, they can kind of figure it out. We download apps on our phones all the time, and somehow we just know how to use them without reading a manual. But we also bring technology into this. There's technology out there today for low-code or no-code platforms. Instead of writing software code, you can drag these widgets around on the screen, and what you see is what you get in that end software that you get out of that. Even when it comes to machine learning, we've invested in a platform that is drag and drop. Those data scientists are very hard to come by. Right. If you select your problem very carefully, you can actually build a machine learning model with very little technical expertise.
Which I think is great, because you're going to have people who are coming with, whether it's Army or National Guard, with a lot of technical expertise, but maybe not in this area where they're, the best example I always joke about is I never read a manual to install my VCR. That's a VCR for people who are listening. That's the thing you put the tape in. And anyways, but for my parents, it was always like, what button works and what cable works? And it's like, okay, Mom, I got it, right? We're almost out of time. Before I let you guys go, we just want to kind of sum up what we've been talking about here today. Let me start with Colonel George a little bit. This idea of readiness, it's changing. The way you get to better readiness is changing. Where are we heading? What's your hope that if we have this conversation again in a year from now and 3 years from now, how is it going to look differently?
That we're moving away from manual processes. I think somebody mentioned DERS earlier, the Defense Readiness Reporting System. Right now, at the top end, it's aggregating a lot of data, but at the very bottom end, it's very manual input. So if I don't go out and start up my Humvee that day, and it worked last week, I assume it worked this week, so it's still ready. Moving to a process more where it's pulling from the sensors and is constantly updating the readiness of that platform, so it gives us a true sense of our readiness, not just a garbage in, garbage out, or good data in, good data out philosophy. So.
And then obviously decisions that come from that data.
And then being able to drive those decisions rapidly to save cost, time, resources.
And Colonel Crook, same question. Where you see this discussion going in 3 years from now?
Similarly, the National Guard is using big data as well as AI and cloud computing to enhance our response time to our mission partners, our state and local mission partners. We're looking to innovate some of our legacy systems to shorten that decision-making time to make us have better command and control so we can make decisions, but we're keeping the human in the process. We're rolling that in to capitalize on the successes that we've done we pride ourselves on the nation's defense force, but it's going to make us better at doing what we've been doing.
All right, and that's the key. Become better, make better decisions, be more ready. All right, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. So first of all, let me thank my guests. Colonel Kerry George, the Deputy Director of Maintenance Policy and Programs at the Army. Colonel Marlon Crook, the Deputy Director for the National Guard Bureau for CIO J6 Directorate. Mark Fox, the Senior Manager for Global Defense Programs at Amazon Web Services. And Risa Savold, the Technical Director at Infor for Federal and DoD Solutions. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm Jason Miller, and you've been listening to the panel discussion, Maximizing Efficiencies, Readiness, and Asset Management in DoD, sponsored by Infor on Federal News Radio, part of the Federal News Network. For more on this discussion, visit federalnewsnetwork.com and search Infor.